Hi, I'm Valerie Davis, CEO of Assembly North America. I'm here with Aaron. Aaron, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Aaron Tabas. I'm VP of Content Strategy and Innovation at Vox Media, and I'm happy to be here in Cannes with you in the Stagwell studio.
Awesome, thank you. I was actually going to cover off on that. But I wanted to set the stage as to why we're here today.
Yep.
Assembly and Vox Media have partnered together on consumer perception on sustainability in the ad industry. We were really curious to find out what consumers thought about what we're doing in the ad industry. And it was interesting to find out that they didn't think that we had impact at all, really. I think it was like 75% or 76% were not aware that we had sustainability issues in our industry. I want to ask you about something. Were you as surprised as our respondents to learn that global internet emissions are akin or similar to the aviation industry? I was surprised by that. The respondents were surprised by that. I'm curious, were you surprised by that as well?
I was taken aback by that. I think that is really kind of one of the most important facets of this research, is that the consumer base is largely unaware of the impact that our industry makes. And once we make them aware of this issue, it's clear that they become kind of very progress-oriented, wanting to see our industry and the actors within it really take accountability for reducing that impact, because in fact it is just about as large as the aviation industry. And I think that fact, it will really spark people's brains to say, all right, it's time to take a little bit of action.
Particularly because the number one reason for a young consumer in purchasing is they care about sustainability and they take that into account. Do you think brands are as surprised by this factor, that our industry, that we're supporting them as brands, are as bad off in sustainability as we are?
I think it's clear that a lot of brands take sustainability of their operations very seriously, and it hasn't always made its way directly to the advertising industry and the way they think about holding their practices accountable to that. So now that we're able to make them aware that their kind of scope 2 and scope 3 emissions are just as important and just as kind of widespread as some of their scope 1 emissions, it's something that I feel that they will start to take action about. And I think there's a number of solutions that us as well as Assembly have really created to help support them in their journey.
Was there anything else about the research that came to light that surprised you?
I think the scope of how many people actually felt strongly about this. When we asked them, do you prefer that advertisers make sure they use sustainable solutions in their campaigns, it was almost 90% of people. And almost over 85% of people said that advertisers should work with publishers and agencies that are also measuring and reducing their emissions. And that's a pretty clear signal that they want to see us take responsibility for what we're doing.
Exactly. So then that leads to they want action and they want accountability. So let's talk a little bit about that action. What do you think brands are going to do? What are they going to? Because you're a publisher and I'm an ad agency, a media agency. What are brands going to require of us moving forward, knowing that consumers are going to be more loyal to brands that are taking action and aligned to their value set of sustainability and caring about the environment?
I think first and foremost, measurement is just a very important factor here. And I think that's largely why the industry hasn't responded until maybe the past 1 or 2 years, is that we weren't measuring this. We weren't holding ourselves accountable. We didn't have the technology to say that the infrastructure was emitting at such a high capacity. So I think measurement will be a very important piece of this. They'll expect advertisers and agencies and publishers to start measuring what it looks like to be distributing content, measuring what it looks like to be producing their creative on set and on site, and actively looking to reduce from there and setting benchmarks and goals so that they can ensure that they're delivering on that promise to consumers.
And from a media agency perspective, I fully expect, and I don't see it often, similar to DE&I that have made its way into RFPs when brands are putting up their business for review. I suspect we're going to start seeing more of that in the sustainability area. I think in all the RFPs I've seen, maybe I've seen it once, but I'm seeing DEI consistently. So I think that's going to be another action we're going to start to see as brands, as the light gets shown more on this, and brands are going to need to start to take action. They're going to want their media and creative agencies to really also be aligned to those values and actions.
Yeah, and just to remark on that, I think that the kind of parallel path that sustainability is just a few years behind on is exactly the same with DE&I. The consumers expect that the brands and the agencies and the product is diverse and inclusive and equitable. And I think that this research showed the same thing. They expect that agencies and brands are sustainable in their practices, but then they are also sustainable in creating the actual product and distributing it. So it's a very similar kind of pathway that I think is now awakening in the industry and hopefully in the consumer, which I hope to continue to educate them, because I think that their voice being missing in our industry is actually a very big reason potentially that we haven't moved as quickly as we could, because other industries like oil and gas and automotive, the voice of the consumer is very pronounced.
Yes.
They want the change, and they were largely unaware of that. Now they are. Hopefully it helps to drive progress in our industry as well.
Let me just I want to close by just talking a little bit about the amazing piece that is in Vox Media. And another thing that surprised me, there was so much in it that surprised me, and I know how much I care and our agency cares about sustainability, which is why we wanted to partner in this research. But what was really eye-opening to me was the programmatic aspect of our business. To know that programmatic media is responsible for 2.6 million metric tons of CO2 emissions annually. To me, that was shocking. But one of the things that you say in terms of action, this is in the spirit of action, is that if we just take 10%, if we move our spend from 10% of the biggest culprits in the programmatic business, and we move it to other areas of more responsible networks and platforms, that we will actually reduce emissions by near 34,000 metric tons a month, which doesn't quite put a dent in it. It does put a little dent in it, but it's still not enough considering what we're up against, right? So tell me, what other action do you think that we should be taking in the industry, as well as do you think those platforms are going to start to get some public shaming for not adhering to some sustainability practices?
100%. I think the acronym MFA, Made for Advertising, is something that is really starting to get shamed terribly. You cannot simply build a website anymore to just run ads and have it be filled with programmatic calls every second. It's a big deal, and I think the reason that data point is so important is that it's actually not a very heavy lift to make that change. You can simply move those dollars into more sustainable marketplaces like the green marketplace that we set up with Scope 3, where we can measure and optimize all of our emissions tied to the campaigns. So it represents a kind of first step movement for an advertiser to do, but we, I think, are interested in even bigger moves. We want to see them take responsibility, not just there because that's right in front of us, but let's measure and reduce the emissions again tied to our production. Let's make sure that they're partnering with advertising agencies and publishers that have the right policies and frameworks within their organizations, and let's continue to educate the public on how important this issue is, and for our industry to take not just the small steps, but also the big steps to help reduce the problem.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, I thank you so much for your partnership in this research study, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and hopefully making an impact in this very important initiative of sustainability and keeping our Earth safe for our children. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.